Join me tonight as I talk with Kerry Cassidy about top secret space programs and Project Camelot. See you in about 5 minutes. Good evening, everyone. I'm so sorry we had some technical difficulties with the intro. First time that's happened. Welcome to the show tonight. We got a really great show. My name is Charlotte. I'm going to be your host for the next hour. I'm also the owner of the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team, based out of Sacramento, California. We're 45 strong up and down the state of California, which means if you have a ghostly need, we can help you out with it. That puts us in almost every county in the state. So if you need something, we can get to you. Anyway, I want to welcome you. And wow, tonight's show, I don't know what else I could say about it. Kerry Cassidy is our guest. And we're going to be talking about a couple of topics that really interest me. And one is the secret space program. And I've been interested in this for a long time, along with time travel. So I can't wait to talk with Kerry about this. But I apologize for the beginning there. There were some, like I said, technical difficulties. I don't know why, but something went dreadfully wrong. So anyhow, I'm here. And feel free, the chat room, if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and do that in the chat room. All right. And tonight we're broadcasting via Facebook. We are broadcasting via. Thank you. Tonight we're broadcasting via Facebook. We're also broadcasting on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. So if you're sitting there on Facebook and Twitter, Twitch, oh yes, yeah, in those places, please hit that follow button if you like what you see. If you like what you see over on YouTube and you're watching from YouTube, please hit that subscription button. And it's the little ghost down in the bottom right-hand corner with the magnifying glass and the Sherlock Holmes hat on, because we're looking for subscribers. YouTube shows us no love, so the more subscribers we get, the merrier. Again, my name is Charlotte. I'm the owner of the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team. We are based out of Sacramento, California. And let me get an email here. Okay, making sure. And again, I apologize for the beginning. Something went dreadfully wrong. Live radio, right? Anyway, so how is everybody doing tonight? Well, I hope you're doing well. I'm doing well. And I want to thank you all for coming. And I know it's late on the, it's what, after 9, it's 9:30 on the East Coast, and California time. There's all kinds of time zones here. People, some people are going to be listening from Europe and everything else, especially when I submit this into the RSS version, which goes through Apple and and Google and all the different podcast systems. I'm just making sure I've got everything here so that, okay, yeah, so that Kerry comes in. And I don't know, I had an instance happen to me as a kid, or not a kid, but 8:30 p.m. Okay, gotcha. You guys are telling me the times. Thank you. See, it's 6:30 p.m. here in California. It's come up on 6:30 p.m. And that's the joy of California, right? Because you guys are we're all on different time zones here. Completely different time zones. Let me pop in here with Kerry real quick. Let me send her an extra link because maybe the link got lost or something. That happens more often than not. That's how the show's gone so far today, anyway. Let me get this. Okay, let me get this thing. Anyway, if you go on our YouTube site, you will see that we've got more than 350 videos over there of all different topics, including this topic here. And I think there's something over there that's better. That there's something there for everybody. Okay, let me fire this off. Hang on one second. And I'm a journalist, photojournalist by trade, so I like to break up the monotony when I'm doing the shows. I don't always like to do straight paranormal shows or anything like that. I really enjoy doing varying topics. So you might see a show like this. You might see a show about ghosts. You might see a show about spousal abuse or a murder or something like that. I just like to break up the monotony. So I'm sure that if you go over there and take a look around, you'll see that. A second. You'll see that there's something for everybody. A little something for everybody. And then while we're waiting for Kerry to come in, it's been a bizarre night. While see what's happening. Okay, hang on. I'm going to send this link again. Oh, man, Kerry's having issues getting in. Hang on. There you go, right there. All right. Yeah, Kerry's having trouble getting into the show. She'll be here. I'll make sure she's here one way or another. Okay. Yeah, I just resent the link to her. Okay, let me do it one more time. I can tell it's gonna be one of those nights. So just hang with us. Things, it's live radio, and this happens. I can't wait to talk to Kerry. I have so many questions, and I think she's got the answers I'm looking for. Okay, there we go. So now we wait. But anyway, we've done a lot of investigating up and down the state of California to some places you guys might have heard of. Some places that have been on shows like Ghost Hunters, such as the Moss Beach Distillery, the Brookdale Lodge. Make sure I got this off to her. I don't know what's going on tonight with the internet. Yeah, that's the last number on there. Bear with us. The Brookdale Lodge, with Moss Beach Distillery, the Brookdale Lodge, the Queen Mary. You guys have heard the Queen Mary, right? Right? Okay. All right, so Kerry's with us. And like I said, I've been looking forward to tonight for a while. I had Kerry on earlier in the year, and we talked about stuff. But there's other things I want to ask Kerry about, okay? Because the secret space program fascinates me, and I've heard other stories around the web about things, so I can't wait to talk with Kerry. So let me bring Kerry in. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
That was a confusing night. Even my intro didn't work. I don't know what's going on.
I know, and I'm having trouble with everything right now. So if you can bear with me.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I started like usually I have a nice intro for that 5-minute intro, and it did my whole spiel, then it didn't play it right, and then finally played it, and then no intro behind there.
Yeah, so just bear with me. I'm going to try to go live here on Facebook at the same time.
It's one of those nights, you know?
Yeah, I've given up on trying to predict what the hell is going to happen. Excuse my French, but things are just really kind of crazy lately.
Yeah, you never know, man.
Okay, so I think I am broadcasting over Facebook now.
Okay.
So And what I should be doing, I think, is sharing my screen. So hold on a second here. If this will work, what we've got going on. Okay, that's not it. No, that's not it. Okay. Okay. Looks a little promising. I can't see this. There it is. Okay. So because I've got these other windows going on and everything. And so hopefully this is working. Let's see on Facebook. Yes, they're seeing us. Okay. So, okay. I checked. Okay. Sorry for that.
That's okay. I'm sorry for laughing because I had my moments earlier. God, when my thing didn't go off when it was supposed to, I was like, my mouth's not moving, something's wrong. Because I do a pre-lead in, right? And
Yeah.
I was frozen, and I was like, why am I frozen? So then I finally got that to work, and I'm waiting for that whole, get your popcorn and snacks thing that I have, and it never came on. So then I left it blank for a couple minutes, and I thought, I can't do that. So I finally came on. That's how it's been.
Okay, and sorry about this because I have I have a lot of lipstick on. I don't. It wasn't supposed to be like this, but I got interrupted, and I it's very hard once I put any lipstick on to take it off for the camera because the camera picks up the color like you wouldn't believe and just accentuates it. So just try to work through that. It wasn't really intentional. It was a mistake.
This is just anyway, going on tonight, man.
So rather than delay the show trying to just fix my makeup, I'm just going to leave it as it is. So
that's it. I'll put it.
All right.
You can put a disclaimer on this too when you put it on your site that the show just started at 6:30. Within 5 minutes because the first part of it's wonky. So that's all there is to it. Kerry, welcome back. It's good to see you, and I've been excited to talk to you about things. Really excited. So for the people for the people that haven't heard you before on the show, tell us about you.
Well, I'm an investigative journalist, documentary filmmaker, and I've been doing this now. And I'm broadcaster, and I've been doing this now for 17 years, and really going down the rabbit hole. Actually, Project Camelot is known as the sort of breaking the ground for a lot of other broadcasters that now do what we do or did. And so it's all about finding the truth and bringing it to the surface and telling the people. And we initially picked up a consumer grade camcorder and toured the world on a very low budget, investigating and talking to whistleblowers from above top secret. So we were very unique back in the day. Now everyone is trying to do that, and with various degrees of success, I think you might say. But we were really unique back in the day, and so that's who I am.
Fantastic. Now I have some questions now. When we talk about Project Camelot, what is that exactly? What do you define it as?
Well, we named our project Project Camelot, which was initially myself and a partner. Mm-hmm. He was English. His name is Bill Ryan. He was my partner for the first 3 years, and then we split. And so I've continued, as I say, for the last, and so it's in 17 years. So I guess that means I've done 14 or 15 on my own. And Project Camelot was, again, just created by both of us. We connected because I interviewed him. In a sense, I had already started Camelot. I just didn't call it that. And I had picked up a consumer grade camcorder and started interviewing UFO people that were on the UFO circuit, the speakers, and specifically was trying to make a documentary back at that time. Bill Ryan was one of my guests on my show back in those days. And we hit it off. We connected in Tintagel in England, which is the former home of King Arthur, where I had past life recall of the time of Arthur. And that kind of tied into why we named ourselves Project Camelot. And we wanted to call ourselves Camelot, but of course there were zillions of websites with the name Camelot. So we had to have a unique beginning or ending to that. And so I had been working for Jet Propulsion Lab, JPL, and I was writing screenplays, sci-fi screenplays on my lunch hour. And so I knew about, Black projects and all of that, and how they often started with the name Project this, Project that, Project Bluebeam, Project, you name it. And so I'd written a screenplay called Project Moondust, written, but it was fictional, that I shopped around Hollywood for a while. And basically, so we took the name Project and we were going to call it Camelot Project or Project Camelot, but decided Project Camelot sounded better. So then we named ourselves that, started a website, started touring the world, started interviewing whistleblowers, and the rest is history, as they say. So what happened, let me say this, that we didn't know about it at the time. We started, all of this was back in 2005, I think it was. Yeah, 2005 I started on my own. And basically there is a social, some kind of program that the CIA, I think, had put together with the name, strangely, Project Camelot. But it's not so unusual to think that they would name something back in those days. This was before we were even old enough to walk. It was back in the 60s, and they were doing some kind of program, and like a sort of Tavistock program or something, and they called it. And Camelot, of course, in England is an extremely famous name and used all the time in various places and castles and so on and so forth. So calling it, when you work in Black projects, Project Camelot is not unusual, but we didn't know about that. So some people, after we got formed and created by ourselves, thought we were some government thing that started in the 60s, but of course we weren't, and we didn't know about that at the time. But that might be of interest to people. If you do a search on the web, you might come across that old project. No relation again. And we started on a shoestring budget, literally, just the two of us and a little tiny camcorder. I didn't have lights. I didn't have anything professional. And but I was trained as a filmmaker. I went to film school, UCLA. And I was in what's called the short fiction film program, which is a very, at the time, was a groundbreaking program that I was actually what you call a hyphenate, which is a director, producer, I forgot the other one, a director, producer, writer. Okay. So you could come in as a hyphenate, which I did, and worked on a film that I tried to shoot at the time. I ended up shooting it after the program was over because of logistics and money, but nonetheless went through that program and all that. So I was trained, and I also taught myself film editing, and that's how I ended up doing all of this with Camelot. I was the editor to start out with, and I taught Bill how to use the camera when he joined me. So, because I ended up being the interviewer, at least in the early days. And so that's why I couldn't, it was much more difficult for me to shoot the camera and be on camera at the same time. So eventually I gave that task to him. Although you'll see in the old Camelot videos, you'll see me behind the camera. So a lot of times we ended up with two cameras, and I would still stand behind the camera and ask questions in the early days, because I was really sort of gung-ho as I call a guerrilla filmmaker, which it's an old term coming from the early MTV days and film back in those days. And that meant that you were, you filmed on the run, that you didn't have, a huge crew, and you didn't have a lot of money behind you. You just shot anything you could find. Right. So that's Project Camelot. Awesome. And now we have, I have done over 1,000 interviews, maybe closer at this point, getting to 2,000. I used to have also a radio show for about, I don't know, 4 or 5 years on Revolution Radio before video, because we basically started when this whole sector was growing up. And YouTube, I was an original YouTube director back in the day when YouTube and Google started the video sections of their stuff. You could only do 10-minute videos. You might remember those days. And
Right.
I, as a YouTube director, because of my director training and work in Hollywood, which ended up working in Hollywood for 20 years before I got into this field. So I got on board as a YouTube director back in those days, and they let me film 2-hour videos. So we didn't do sound bites. We did intensive 2-hour interviews. And like I said, now I have like well over 1,000 videos, and they're all on my website, and they're on odyssey.com. They used to be on YouTube. In fact, I had a huge YouTube channel that they deleted over the last 2 years. And everyone I've tried to start since then, they end up banning me from YouTube over and over again. So it's insane. So I don't even try to go on YouTube now. They won't even let me on, I don't think. But so that's where a lot of my new videos there are all on Rumble and on Odyssey, and then on my website. All the old videos are on Odyssey, because when we were deleted off YouTube just by some kind of incredible gift from the universe, Odyssey had soaked up almost 900 of our videos right out of YouTube, just grabbed the whole thing. So thank God we didn't disappear off the web. And so we're still alive and kicking, and that's the story.
When you talk about black programs, what does that mean exactly?
That means above top secret, highly secret. And that means if you go top secret, you go above it. So from there on, and everything is what we call black. And it's just a term, you could say going dark is a similar term, but it relates to, again, black projects. And these things have to do with the secret background behind them, and that they're secret on the agency level, but they're also secret in terms of what's called the secret space program. And they require, basically credentials that involve above top secret. For example, the Q clearance is an above top secret clearance.
Okay.
And that gets into the white hats and why I know so much about them, whereas other people don't seem to.
Interesting. And what types of, like you're saying, the secret space program, what types of things have they been doing that we don't know about?
Well, there's a whole long list that I did a project with the white hats back in the days, way before Q came to the forefront, which was about the last 3 years ago, but prior to that, like 6 years, 7 years, I was working, both behind the scenes and also doing interviews with a few white hats like Pleiadian. And the white hats at the time, they specialized back in those days in documentation. And so they had Pleiadian was an investigative forensic financial accountant who basically was part of investigating the financial fraud going on in our government and exposing it through documentation. So they sort of teamed up with me on one thing that was to describe what you just asked, black projects. And so I've written, and I have a whole presentation that I've done called Black Projects Follow the Money. So if you want to know, like I said, it's a long list, and I can give you samples of that. So one of the first and foremost things that they're interested in is actually the transhuman. So in creating, back in those days, I actually named that effort, which is, an effort to create a Superman. So it was like basically a Superman versus angelic human. And so they chose to go the augmentation route, which involves what we call super soldiers. And this whole idea of if you've ever seen the movies Universal Soldier,
Mm-hmm.
you understand that it started in Nazi Germany with enhancing the human to not only have more enhancements, run faster, it even started even before, on regular television, like Bionic Woman,
Mm-hmm.
Bionic Man. That was telling the public in this, I think, the 60s, 70s, what they were working on, which is like, they like to do that. That's part of their sort of modus operandi. So in essence, one of the Black projects for sure is the Super Soldier Project, and
Mm-hmm.
involving transhumanism. Now, this is very important to understand because it also involves not your normal human enhancement that you might think of. So it can be psychic enhancement. It can be enhancement in terms of sort of intellect, but also psychic abilities that you wouldn't think of. So it's not all brain, brawn
Right.
and being like a Schwarzenegger or whatever. So, important to say that. The sun is coming through the clouds over here, making the video a bit whatever. But so this is, what one of the projects, and
Right.
Black projects can be, I mean, I have a whole list on my presentation, as I say, and if you go to my website and you want to read that or watch, and if I was going to share my screen, I could share it, but you basically just put in Black projects, those first two words in the search, and it'll probably come up pretty quickly. So other projects have to do with. Have you ever seen the movie Hannah?
Yes.
Okay, now there's a new version of Hannah, but there was that's a TV show. But there's actually, and it's made by the same people. In fact, I know the producer who made Hannah, and he's an old colleague, friend of mine back in the day. I always wondered whether he got his idea for getting this project off the ground from me, from Project Camelot, but he's never acknowledged that, so I don't know. But I will say that it was all about taking young people and enhancing them. And of course, they do go across the gamut. They even, they'll enhance like a grandmother kind of person, an old person, to have certain abilities. And the CIA, of course, finds this very useful as well with their agents. So but Black projects can be anything from, going off planet and planning, colonizing other planets to creating different technologies. DARPA is heavily involved. Anything DARPA isn't doing, anything secretive that DARPA, most of what DARPA does is secretive, would be part of what we call the secret space program. It just branches across like MIT, all of these organizations that are feeding scientific knowledge and expertise into the secret space program to basically create a global and a spacefaring organization of colonizers. And the premise behind the whole secret space program, as it has been, to basically be the one on top, to be the colonizer, to go out into space and take over and rule over whatever alien civilizations they encounter. But there is a cog in that machine, in that plan, because what had happened was we were already invaded multiple times throughout the centuries. And whether you know it or not, our genome is a hybrid genome. And we have the DNA already of many alien species blended into our DNA. And this has happened over the time, ever since we came to the planet. We were not created the Adam and Eve story is actually, it's a nice story, but it's not real. It's not true. We came from Lyra. Most humans come from Lyra originally. Eventually, some of us came from the Pleiades and other planets, and it continues to be like that. Some of us are, more hybrids than others, and some of us are mixtures of, like, there's the gray human hybrid program. So whether you like it or not, and I don't particularly like it, the grays, which are a form of reptilian, came here, abducted humans on a regular basis, focusing, I think, from what I understand, on the US to begin with. Eventually were persuaded by our secret space program to go down to Central and South America and focus on those cultures instead of the United States. They still continue in the United States, I can say, and they're still operational even today. A lot of people don't realize that the grays didn't disappear, and they're very instrumental, by the way, in the rollout of the COVID, which is an invasionary bioweapon that was created to basically convert humans into transhumans, to connect us with what's called, which is an AI that the Greys report to as well. It's an AI that is probably in charge of the Draco reptilians. The Greys are a sub race, even all the different types of Greys, and they report to the higher levels. But this COVID bioweapon is created by the artificial intelligence that is said to even run the Draco reptilians. And it's something that happens. It's an invasionary group of AI that go along with the Draco reptilians, who are a marauding species, and they are colonizers. They are colonizers the way we supposedly want to be, but they are very much a militaristic, top-down kind of organization and culture. And so when they go out around the planets, they look for humanoid planets to invade, in fact. And then they take over and invade the genome. And this is how the Anunnaki were created. A lot of people don't know that the Anunnaki were taken over by the reptilians many eons ago. And they are hybrids. Therefore, they are, reptilian human hybrids, humanoid hybrids, not human. So the Anunnaki are a break-off organization or race, a species. I was told recently by a scientist, you shouldn't use the word race, you should use the word species. So I should be saying species, but so they are, the Anunnaki were from the Pleiades, but they were a rogue group. They split off from the Pleiades. The Pleiadians have been fighting the invasionary AI slash Draco reptilians forever. And part of the reason that the Pleiadians came to Earth to help us, and I've witnessed testimony that supports everything I'm saying pretty much here, some of which I have been getting downloads over the last few years. So some of which does come also in connecting the dots, you might say, is more my download information. But so what happens is the Pleiadians came here, and this is a lot of the testimony of William Tompkins, who was a Navy whistleblower, who was about to die, really. He was in his 90s when I interviewed him. And eventually, I believe they killed him. Either that or they gave him, access, a get out of jail free card, which means they took him off planet. And that's possible. But at any rate, he was killed, the story goes. So I never got a second interview with him. And he revealed a tremendous amount. We did a 3-hour interview that went way into depth. And he talks about how our secret space program, with NASA and the whole thing, back in those days, was helped by two groups. One was the Pleiadians on the one hand, and the other was the reptilians that are actually from Aldebaran. And they are the ones who worked with the Nazis to get the Nazis the higher tech. And then it came over during paperclip to the US. So we had these two branches, and a lot of sabotage of our secret space program took place by the reptilians, and probably continues to do so today. Like when you hear, okay, they're sending a spaceship to Mars or Jupiter. Oh my God, something's gone wrong. You know, some part of it, like the camera or the this or the that, doesn't work. You know, isn't that a coincidence? And just when they were going to do, you know, some flyover, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is a continual battle that we have to not only of the secret space program to go into space, but to deal with this Draco reptilian overlords, if you will, trying to control and prevent us in certain ways. So sorry for the long-winded.
Oh, that's okay. Now, my question to this is, like you mentioned, people being abducted and stuff. Did we not have an agreement with some of the alien races that it was okay for them to take humans?
To do what?
To abduct humans.
Well, that's a mixed bag as to just, yes, in a certain sense, because like I said, they gave them, or in a certain way, they made a deal with them to go to Central and South America. That was a deal. But first of all, every treaty we ever made with these off-worlders, it has been broken. And secondly, yes, it is said that, you know, with beings that go through this process, and by the way, I'm one of them. You know, I was abducted when I was a kid. I had a recurring abduction sort of dream scenario that would terrify me every night when I was around 12 years old. And eventually it did stop and so on. But I was born in a military hospital in Moffett Field in Palo Alto, California. And I was the only child in my family of 4 kids that was born there. And I have a strange birthmark on my shoulder, and I have an implant, and I had all kinds of abductions. So I was definitely messed with by the secret space program in some form or fashion, which could have to do with why I do the job I do, the mission I have. And I think I was also very much protected by the whatever alien group is protecting me, which I have been told is definitely the Pleiadians on one's, you know, side, because I get downloads even now telling me, you know, of my connection to them and my mission, because my mission is very much involved in what is their objective. So and I have sort of mixed feelings about it, but their objective is to outfit humans to fight the war with Draco reptilians for them. Okay. So that we will be the front, you know, the advance group. And that way it'll take some of the heat off the Pleiadians. That's the idea. And even William Tompkins talked about this, you know, briefly. A lot of people want to think that, oh, the Pleiadians are the good guys and they love everybody and all this kind of thing. But see, there are no races that are actually like they think they are. Every race or species out there has its own operational agenda. And we judge them based on whether we see them as friendly towards us, as being on our side to, you know, work with to our best interest in the future. And the reality is that every single species out there has its own agenda. If we fall into that agenda, then they are on our side. If we don't fall into that agenda, then we appear to, you know, we tend to view them as the enemy. And that goes for AI as well, by the way. And we have evidence of a lot of invasionary AI, as well as the AI that we think we created, but we created with help from various alien species. So it's a real mixed bag going on out there right now. And obviously, everything has started to, all of this has been revealed on planet Earth now in spades. So what I'm saying is not a secret anymore. When we started in Camelot, people thought, we were just the most radical organization, and, having revealed a lot of this stuff.
I heard, I don't know if it was one of your interviews I saw or something, where one of the alien species eats us. Well, just put it bluntly, where somebody wants to, one of those alien species needs something from, or there's some kind of nutrient that we have that they want in our bodies.
Well, I think what you're maybe talking about is adrenochrome, and I call it the adrenochrome highway. This is where Draco reptilian species, and that includes the grays, feed off it's basically the fluids coming from various glands in humans, which they consider an aphrodisiac on the one hand, and also food. They consider humans food. So they also, they consider like the adrenaline rush, that when you kill an animal and it's in a state of fear, the adrenaline, pumps out, and it basically is, it's orgone, also known as kundalini. And so that is, it's a powerful plasma-like solution that we can exude. Okay, and this gets into vril and powers that the humans have, etc. That have a lot of have not been explored properly here on Earth. But at any rate, the Draco reptilians and the Greys all feed off us, and they are part of, because they instilled part of their DNA into ours. We have a component of reptilian in the whole human species now. But what are called the blue bloods, tend to have a greater concentration of the reptilian DNA. And this is what makes them, they tend to be stronger, more aggressive, climb to the top at any rate, possibly enhanced intelligence at times, and various things as a result of their reptilian added DNA. Okay. Now that's become a problem within the human species, because not only are the reptilian Greys and Draco feeding on us, now other humans are feeding on us. Okay. So those that have these lower sort of impulses, if you will, and it's really their chakra development, having to do with their chakra development. So it's not just a DNA question, but definitely the ones that have risen to the top in our society have tended to do so on the heads, or on the, with their boots on the necks of the people that have a less reptilian DNA. And so they also feed on them, and that includes the children, which is considered the best source of this. It's called loosh, is one of the sort of slang terms for it. But so all of this is out there. I'm not saying anything that's not known or new, but a lot of people have no idea about it, of course, and they don't understand it. Because I've been doing this for so long, and because before I got into Project Camelot, I actually set out to reach enlightenment when I was young. And so when I was 21, I went into meditation every day. I connected all my chakras, and I basically had these multiple samadhi experiences, because as it happened, I didn't really know this at the time, but that's in your 20s is the best time to do what I did. And so I was very successful at it. And so I understand firsthand what activated Kundalini is, or orgone, if you want to use that term, and in the human, and I understand how it works and how it can be used, et cetera, et cetera. And it enhances you in amazing ways. It makes you live longer, look younger for your age, be smarter. It enhances your intelligence. It's just a lot of wonderful things. Now, Hollywood, of course, everyone in Hollywood wants to look and stay young. That's their motivation, because you don't have a career otherwise, basically.
Right.
So when they started to, the dark side created those with the high degree of reptilian DNA, began to create based off of children. So they started, children, a certain number of children disappear off the planet, or it appears that they do. They're going into underground bases. They're part of this horrible adrenochrome highway, and they take and synthesize this stuff after torturing children. And this solution is then, in some biomed way, put into something where they can actually either drink it or shoot it up, into their system.
Mm-hmm.
This is people with money and in Hollywood. So, and in other walks of life as well, it's used at the highest, reaches of power. And what happens is it only works for a while. So you need more and more. It's an addiction. You have to, if you want to stay looking younger. That's where you see some of these people where they look okay for a while, and then all of a sudden they start to age like drastically because they didn't have their supply. So it's a really horrible, vicious circle. And it is very operational here on planet Earth. And it is an epidemic, if you want to call it that. Apparently, child trafficking and human trafficking and this whole adrenochrome highway is basically not only financing the secret space program. Number one, it's above drugs and gun running. It makes more money than either of those right now. And so human slavery on Earth is much worse than it ever was in the past. Now,
Wow. That makes you wonder about those David Pleiadians cases, the missing 411 cases too.
That's right. Yeah, he's on it. He knows. He's actually explored this whole thing.
Interesting, very interesting. Now let me ask you. We were talking about NASA's exploration programs that we see. Okay, I'm going to talk about what we're seeing now. These launches, they're supposed to be preparing us to go to Mars and all this. Have we already been to Mars?
Yeah, we have a base on Mars and the moon. I have whistleblower testimony. I mean, William Tompkins, again, was one of the people talking about it. Captain Mark Richards, I have a tremendous amount of whistleblower testimony from him. He's someone in prison by the secret space program on purpose. For the last 35 years, he's been in prison. He is extremely knowledgeable. He was like a Starship Enterprise type captain going interstellar right before he got captured and put into prison, and on a trumped up charge that he was involved in killing a pedophile because of his relationship with some young boys that actually did the deed. And they said he was the mastermind, which he wasn't. But so I've interviewed him in prison for 5 years, and I have 12 interviews. I call them total recall, because when I go into prison to interview him, I don't go under a formal cover as a professional journalist, even though I am one, because they wouldn't allow him to talk. So what I go in is ostensibly as a friend or whatever, and I only have like a little pencil to notes on and my memory to take his testimony out of the prison. And I'm writing a book of this testimony, packaging it into a book right now. But this is incredible testimony, all about the secret space program, how it operates, what goes on there, and incorporates all kinds of things that are just above and beyond anything you could imagine. Like why what the Cuban Missile Crisis really was about, which was alien technology, not what ostensibly we thought it was, the missiles from the Russians and all this.
Right.
So he has, he's a brilliant man. And, I spend like 2 or 3 or 4 hours at a time visiting the prison. This is over a period of 5 years. And it works out to be about 12 interviews over a 5-year period. So that's just one of my whistleblowers. But then there's William Tompkins, and there's many others that we've had over the years. Some have come on the record, and some have actually stayed off the record and reported to me secretly, obviously. So, it's a huge body of work and substantiates everything I'm talking about here.
Sure. Now, if it's my understanding, what they've pounded into our heads over the years about even going to Mars, it would take forever to get there. So are they working on some kind of time travel to do this, or how are they getting back and forth?
Okay, so the idea, and this comes from one of our primary whistleblowers who came out under a fake name initially. We had to give him an assumed name when he first testified, which was Henry Deacon. We named him after this television series character. And who was a scientist. Anyway, he came out eventually under his real name, which is Arthur Neumann, and he actually testified on stage at one of my conferences, my Time Travel in Other Worlds conference that I did in Glendale in 2013. But at any rate, he is now gone to ground, as they say. He's off the record and he's hidden. But at any rate, he come forward and he talked about what was going on with a lot of that. And we've had many whistleblowers since then that substantiated that material. So the question is, I guess you're saying, do we go to Mars? And yes, we went to Mars. We went, even NASA did go to the moon. Okay. When they arrived, this is William Tompkins' testimony. He actually made a drawing of it. It's a famous drawing, and I have it on my website, showing what they encountered, which was a lineup of reptilian vehicles with the reptilians standing next to their vehicles. And our astronauts arrived and got out of their vehicle, and this is what they encountered. Basically, the moon was off limits. Get the hell out of here. So this is why, Stanley Kubrick had to fake the moon landings, okay? Because we were actually intercepted by the reptilians. And this story is only revealed by William Tompkins and a few other things. There are always clues and things that don't add up and so on and so forth. But the population out there just does not get it. They don't understand how the secret state works, how they operate, how they figure to do things to deceive us, constantly, and so on. So that was one of the areas where there's a huge amount of, disinfo that gets pumped out on a regular basis, and so on.
Now, time travel. Do they have the capability now to do time travel?
Yes. And even recently, okay. Sean David Morton, do you know who he is?
Yes.
I just interviewed him again. He was contacted by a whistleblower who was apparently in charge of Area 51, Dulce, and in essence, what we would say is the secret space program back in, I think, the 60s when it first originated, 50s, 60s. And this man has gone into hiding. Originally, Sean said he died, but now we hear that he's actually, what he really did is travel out of this sector. But he left behind a series of volumes of books that contained supposedly his real life story of how he and a group ran from the early days and built up Area 51 and Dulce and dealt with alien races and so on. So what Sean has done, his direction was, because this man still has family back on Earth and has to protect them and so on and so forth. Sean had to write him up into a fiction based on fact series of books. And those series of books are called Sands of Time. And they're a really fun read. So they're great books. And there's now 4 of them. There's a new one that came out that I'm still reading, actually halfway through. It's called Time Runner. And it actually does focus more on time travel. And there's a formula in there for time travel, scientists will say using the word time travel is actually wrong, that it's not per se time traveling through time so much as it is time slippage and slipping and sliding through these gates and portals and so on. But anyway, so that's one aspect of where you can look at it. The other one is that, humans, this is what my understanding built up over 17 years of testimony, that we ourselves are time travelers by our nature, and that we actually do time travel, even though we don't necessarily know it. And some of us are better at it than others, right? And have better, recall of when we leave our bodies and go into other time, dimensions and times and so on. Now, this does get into interdimensional travel, because we didn't go to the moon through the, what do they call it? Kuiper Belt or whatever that is. Mm-hmm. We didn't go that. We don't go directly in space. We go interdimensionally we jump in essence, and go through portals to travel in space. Again, something most people just don't understand. So I'll say, oh, we could never have gone through the Van Allen belt because, all these things will hit you and stuff. But we're not doing it that way. It's just not done that way. And they don't understand, interdimensions and the way travel, if you want to call it that, happens in the multiverse. So this is very crucial to understanding. And it's also something flat earthers need to understand, because they don't get that. Now, I don't know why, but I have no trouble understanding this. It's just in my mind, I can visualize it perfectly. I've even had dealings, interdimensional dealings, I guess you might say, with beings on occasion and so on and so forth. So what it has to do, you kind of have to, in a sense, to understand it really, you do have to kind of reconfigure or at least awaken aspects of your, your DNA, your genome, and awaken that, to start to understand it, right? Mm-hmm. We all have this understanding. We have this capability. It's just whether or not you tap into that. And because of my background with Kundalini meditation, I tapped into all of this, and it also enhances your ability to tell truth from falsity. Now, I'm totally aware that some people listen to me think I'm full of shit. They think I have no idea what's true and what's not. So it can be very subjective when you're looking at another person and thinking, oh, they know something or they don't. All I can tell you is that my understanding is that I am a precog, that I've had a tremendous number of dreams of the future, and many of them have come true. Okay. I don't go around talking about them. Contrary to someone like Sean, who is actually a known psychic who made predictions of earthquakes, and they happened. He's very good at that. He did financial predictions also, which got him into trouble with the SEC, or with, whatever he explains on my video. Sean's a very old friend of mine and we tend to argue about stuff, but we're both, very passionate, very involved in this whole sector. So he has his, contacts that feed him information, and he has his psychic ability. And the same with me and my information, right? And I got very involved with the Ashana Dean Guardian races, and I even had proof that I'm in contact with them when I traveled to India with her group. So anyway, so Sean and I go at it, and you'll see that in the interviews I do with him. Sometimes we tend to get into an argument, but it's fun, and we stay friends. And so, it's very interesting. But he'll have some information that contradicts mine, and mine will contradict his. Like I have whistleblowers and contacts that, but the trouble is you have to keep in mind, you're only as good as how astute you are and your instrument, so to speak, right?
Right.
So if someone like Sean is told by one of his current contacts, and let me say this about Sean, he's a lot more aligned with the conventional people in power than I am. Okay. He's always kind of been more along those lines. He loved Disneyland, and I consider Disneyland the heart of the fucking, Adrenochrome highway. And, so we kind of see things a little differently. Anyway, some of his contacts will feed him information. Mine do the same thing. I have whistleblowers who have given me great information over the years, but they also try to mislead me from time to time with bullshit, lies. Okay. And you never can know really, there's no way to prove some of this information, right? Until it plays out and actually happens around us, or you get other verification, like multiple levels of verification, which happened. But it's always very interesting dealing with sources and whistleblowers and people that will try to feed you, because it's an intelligence game. Yeah. So and everyone has to play it now, not just me, not just Sean, not just, people that do investigations like we do. Nowadays, the average person, even to understand the world, needs to understand the intelligence game. And so one of the things I do when I do conferences and when I talk like here, I take the opportunity to try to educate people on understanding, how to think strategically and how to decipher, take something apart and see where the truth is and where the lies are, and all of that. So it's not like I'm right all the time. I don't think anyone necessarily be right all the time, but all I can tell you is I have a really good track record where I check myself out very carefully. So I will, know something. I don't necessarily tell anyone, but I'll know it's going to happen, and then it happens, and then I know I was correct. I mean, I just had, and this can be on a superficial level. I tell this story about, having a dream, and a lot of my stuff comes in dreams. So I had a dream that my car was towed. I woke up in the morning and said, that's ridiculous. My car is going to be fine. I don't know why I had this dream. It's really stupid. So then I go out and my car was gone. It was towed. So, and then just yesterday, I was really tired, and I was driving through this town that I just moved to in the mountains. And I was a couple of miles away, but all of a sudden I saw a roadblock with a bunch of, sirens, all this kind of thing. And I thought, oh my God, I hope I don't encounter what I just saw. Right. So then about a mile or two away, suddenly there it was, the sirens, the whole thing. And so I had seen it ahead of time. That by some, that might be considered remote viewing. And you can accidentally remote view. That's totally doable. So, these kinds of things give you validation that you're on track, right?
Sure.
Now you could have the opposite. You could think something's going to happen. It doesn't. You have to, you kind of have to be honest with yourself as to, those kinds of things if you're going to try to learn to do this well and be good at it. But in a sense, just surviving, you've got to be able to predict what this crazy government is going to come up with next, you know?
Absolutely, absolutely. I have two questions in the chat room. The first one is, how do we know if we're from the Greys?
Oh, if you have gray human hybrid, if you're one of part of their abduction scenario, it's very. I mean, it might be hard to tell. It depends how old you are, first of all, because the gray abduction program started at a certain point, which is I think a bit later than the 50s, more like possibly the 60s. So if you were born before the 50s or in the 50s, you aren't necessarily part of that hybrid program. Okay. But if you were born after that, you could have been a candidate. And that would depend on whether or not you have, well, let me say this. The gray human hybrids have some of the traits of the grays, right? And one of those traits is, the ability to move objects, for example, and easily, without trying. And they're very intelligent. So the trouble with the grays, a lot of the grays are involved in this hybrid program. The reason they wanted to hybridize and get their DNA into humans, and that goes for all of the different, I call them races, but species that come to Earth. A lot of them want to occupy, they want our bodies. They want a body to inhabit this space because of the there's multiple reasons, I guess, but because of the sensate universe that we're part of here on Earth, in this level, 3D going into 4D, has this high degree of pleasure, pain spectrum. And so what they want is to be able to experience life that way. And they can't do it without one of these bodies, right? Mm-hmm. So they can't breathe our atmosphere. Mm-hmm. And so they basically have to invade our genome, hybridize it, and make it part of, so that they can come and go and use these bodies. And so the new children, a lot of them may be highly intelligent. They may be able to move objects, as has been reported. But they lack empathy. They lack heart. They lack emotions. So they will also be like that. Mm-hmm. Now, there's also, so the movies are always telling you stuff about this. And one of those movies, of course, is the X-Men series. So the whole X-Men scenario is very real. But a lot of people don't realize that, the swarms of people coming to cross the border, the whole border war here with the southern border of the United States, that Trump is very involved in building a wall over. The real reason for the wall, and the reason that such a contested situation, is because what's coming into the US are these gray human hybrids. And what they're going to do when they get here, and whether or not our so-called military, for example, is going to be able to control them. And some of them could be good gray human hybrids. They're not all going to be emotionless, right? Robots. But there could be a fair number that are, and they could also, go on killing rampages. Who knows what they could do, right? The fact is, we don't know. Mm-hmm. Okay. But this is very real. And what's happened is, even this happened in 2016 when Trump was elected and was going into office. The grays, what they do is they can reach them through AI triggering. Mm-hmm. They can reach these hybrids, and they can actually turn on this sort of beacon-like thing that will actually send them in droves in the direction they want. Like, this whole, I don't know what you would call it, like a hive. Mm-hmm. With one objective, and that is to cross that line. So there was plenty of evidence in 2016 of these, of these humans that are gray human hybrid, families and children and so on, all headed for the border. but they were in it like a trance. So they had a trance-like state. And this is major. And I'll tell you, one person who wrote about it before it happened, wrote about this kind of thing, is Whitley Strieber in one of his books, which is called The Greys. And if you want to have a kind of scary book that's very close to the truth, read that book, because he nailed it in that book. Potential. And it is a potential. It's a very great potential. And we haven't even explored where, that manifesting as much as it's going to be. Mm-hmm. Add that to the COVID, bioweapon that they've now shot up a good portion of the population with, who are also now linked the same way the gray human hybrids are to the Borg AI. I just call it the Borg AI. That's my name for it. But it's an alien AI that's trying to run our planet. It's linked through the grays. And one of the people who knows a lot about this is Cyrus Parsa. So I want to give him credit because he did come forward with a lot of this information. I already had it because of my investigation of the Greys and also Mark Richards. But Cyrus substantiates it with his own information, because I didn't even know Cyrus back in those days. But then he came forward as an investigator, and he has enhanced himself, by the way, the same way I did. So he activated his Kundalini, had multiple samadhi experiences and so on. He's kind of hard to deal with, but he's still out there. And we talk from time to time. He's very annoying. So I think I stopped talking to him recently. But, he has a lot of knowledge. And he's actually taken his information to the Trump administration and tried to warn them. They didn't want to deal with him, but I think he gave them a lot of good information. He's written some books, and I've interviewed him many times, actually. So if you're interested in Cyrus Parsa's information, I highly recommend. I've got his book, one of his books, or two of his books. I forget how many, on the front page of Camelot. So if you scroll down, I have Ashana Dean's books, I have my books, I have my book, and I have Cyrus Parsa's book. So, I try to make things, lead people down the Yellow Brick Road
There you go.
As much as possible.
Here's a question. So somebody in the chat room wants to know if ETs visit in our dreams.
Sure. We're dealing with, this is a vehicle. Your body is a vehicle. You come and go. You have a soul. You don't stay here. At night you leave your body. And so, yeah, of course, you may have visitations from various ETs, and they could be good ETs, and you also have interdimensional beings. You have discarnate entities. You have ones that want to take you over and possess you and, all that kind of stuff. And you have dark, individuals here on Earth who are also taken over, who are also using human vehicles to try to seduce other human vehicles. I mean, it's a huge gamut.
Absolutely. I have a question about Planet X. What's going on with Planet X right
now? Well, it's such a can of worms that over the years we dealt with so-called Planet X on and off and got testimony about it. The final sort of idea behind it, as I understand it, is that there's Nibiru that does come and go, and that's actually what you would call a planetoid. That is a spaceship. A planet is in essence a spaceship. And the spaceship can be occupied by a race of beings. In that case, the Anunnaki. So the Anunnaki created their spaceship, which is Nibiru, and it would travel through solar systems and had a regular, so it may have had a regular, elliptical orbit going through our system. Now, whether or not Nibiru and Planet X are the same thing is a question. There's also been a lot of investigation. I mean, I've got tons of interviews that touch on this. I'm got Andy Lloyd talking about, you know, the dark planet, and what could be construed as Planet X. Some people say, I think it's did they call it Planet Nine or something not long ago? What they so called discovered a planet called Planet Nine. Some people say it's that. But other people say that it's also a planetoid that comes into our solar system. But the thing is that, and this comes from one of my whistleblowers called Cameron Faley, which he brought to the fore the idea that planets are beings and they have consciousness. And they know when another planet is like headed their way. So they don't have to collide. They're not like bowling balls or whatever. They're actually conscious beings. And so they make way for these planets to pass by. And that doesn't mean, okay, so alien races, or, you know, what you might want to call different species out there, go to war, and they do use asteroids like you would, in a sense, a bowling ball or a, you know, like to throw it like a, you know, a ball. And they have crashed into Mars with those. They basically, our planet was hit by one, with one of the hits on Atlantis was from one of those asteroids that was aimed at our planet. Okay, so it was aimed to take down the island, or the massive part of the Atlantean civilization. So, you know, when you say Planet X, well, it's kind of like which planet, and whether it's a planetoid and all of that. So there is, let me say that Richard Alan Miller, he's a magician physicist who I've interviewed many times. And I did a show with him recently in which he came forward with information that he hasn't done before. It's not his style to talk about. But I believe the Navy, he is in touch with and under the control, if you want to call it that, of Navy intelligence. And I think they set him up to this. So you have to keep that in mind when you hear what I have to say. But so there's a show that I did with him. And after the show, they took down my entire website. And they took, in like this incredible, like 6 days we were down. It was like a huge hit. So, but in the show, he talked about mathematically, he has now figured out that there's going to be it's not extinction level, but it's like an extinction, what they call a Carrington event, that actually was predicted in the past. But this time he says it's not extinction level, but there will be an event. It will happen, he says, and he figured it out mathematically. They set him up to do this within a 99.9999 percentage that it will happen. That at the end of March, beginning of April 2024. So if you look at that, you'll see that the election is supposed to be in November of 2024.
Right. So
this is in end of March, beginning of April, when there's a full moon, I believe, in a sort of astrological situation, that there is going to be an event that is going to involve land masses to some degree rising up. So it's not like that cataclysmic day after tomorrow thing, but it will cause, changes, earth changes, and it will be some kind of event that will change, humanity or something. So I'm just saying what he's saying. Now, there are a lot of other people, interestingly, predicting similar or something during that time period, okay, of 2024, including Sean David Morton, who was on my show recently. He has his own information of some kind of event coming. I don't think he necessarily zeroes in on those exact months, but I think he's in the ballpark. So just saying that's, kind of out there. as one of those type of events.
Who's calling the shots? Is it the Anunnakis?
Well, no, it's not one group. That
Okay.
seems to be the case. Now, off planet Earth, there is sort of a hierarchy. It goes back to the days of, like, you might, if you're familiar with the Urantia books, and how they talk about the hierarchies, and these certain spiritual hierarchies that go. They are beings that are no longer taking on physical bodies, so they're not even aliens anymore, if you will. They are, you could call them avatars, risen souls, guiding various civilizations. There is reason to believe that there's a group like that some people wanted to think it was, what do they call those? In the Bible, they're referred to by a certain name. I forget what the name is, but anyway, the trouble with the Bible is that it also relates to and puts the Anunnaki in the role of gods, okay, and so-called God. So a lot of times they'll attribute certain personality traits to so-called God, but they're like vindictive. Oh, anyway, vindictive, vindictive God types of actions. Okay. But a vindictive God is not a God. It's
Right.
a lower level, if you want to call it ET race or species or whatever. So this is the trouble with a lot of, in my opinion, with a lot of what you hear in the Bible. So that's where they actually they created, they rewrote the Bible, they interfered on certain levels, different groups. And the Vatican, for that matter, is completely run from underground by the Draco reptilians.
Wow.
And if you've ever seen a picture of the Vatican, it looks like a reptile. I mean, the inside of the reptile, the scales, the whole thing, the eyes.
I have to look at the Vatican. You're going to make me look at the Vatican more closely.
Oh God, it's unbelievable. It is unbelievable. So there, and this is not conjecture. This is fact.
Kerry, thank you so much.
Sure.
God, I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours about this stuff, but thank you for coming back and being on the show. I really appreciate it so much.
Okay, well, I'm glad it worked out. Hopefully I got a recording here and you got a recording, and it's all gonna be good. Thanks for having me on the show. It's fun to talk to you. I know I had you as my guest. I think you're pretty fascinating too. And so it's always fun.
We'll have to get you back on again. You know what I mean? I mean, it's just fun to talk.
Okay, sure.
If you're willing to come back on.
Sure, of course.
Absolutely. All right, Kerry, I want to thank you. I've got all my questions answered. Anybody else in the chat room? Say it now or forever hold your peace. Okay. Slow people. They're slow today.
All right. Fair enough. Okay. Thanks a lot for the show.
Thank you, Kerry. You have a good evening, okay? How can people find you before you leave? How can people find you?
Oh, well, go to projectcamelotportal.com, my website. It's also under a URL, projectcamelot.tv, like television. It's also projectcamelot.org. So we have 3 URLs because we're banned in certain countries. So we devised that to work around. I'm on Rumble. I have a Project Camelot Rumble channel where all the new videos, including this one, reside, as well as Odyssey.com, Project Camelot on Odyssey. And I'm banned from YouTube. So, there's some remnants floating around, my old videos and things, but I can't even access those channels anymore.
Wow.
So that's the trouble with that. What can I say? I have a Telegram channel that's super active, and everything is located on my website. Anything you're looking for, even all the links to these other channels are all on my front page of my website.
Fantastic. And you have a book out too, right? You wrote a
Yeah,
book?
Rebel Gene.
Okay, cool.
So, and it's doing very well on Amazon. So I hope you enjoy it if you get a chance to read it.
Absolutely.
It's Rebel Gene, Gene, like a gene, like your genes.
Sure.
And it's a play on words.
Carrie.
All right.
You have
Take
a great
care.
evening. Thank you so much. All right.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye. All right. That was a great evening. I learned so much, and I hope you did too. Tomorrow, we're going to shift gears a little bit. Medium Nancy Matz is going to be with us, and she's going to be answering questions about your deceased pets. So if you have a pet that has died and you have questions about it, this is the time to ask. You get one question, write it down, and Nancy will spend at least 2-3 minutes telling you about your deceased pet. So that's going to be tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. Pacific. Hopefully, no more weird things going on with the video. But I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. If you're watching from Facebook, please hit that follow button. If you're watching from TikTok or Twitter, please follow. And if you're watching from YouTube and you like what you see, there's 350 more videos of different topics that you might be interested in. Hit that subscribe button, and that's that little man down at the corner, the ghost with the Sherlock Holmes hat on and the big magnifying glass. And I'm sure you're going to find something you like. In fact, Carrie's been on the show before, as she said. So, I mean, we have all kinds of different topics, and you'll spend hours and hours perusing what we have. But I want to thank everybody for coming. If you like the show, share it with 5 people. If you hated the show, send it to 5 of your enemies. We're equal opportunity here at California Haunts Radio. Also, you can find us at CaliforniaHauntsRadio.com and the paranormal groups at CaliforniaHaunts.org. All right? You see that ticker down at the bottom? It's because California Haunts Paranormal Group is a nonprofit group, technically. I own it, so everything that happens within that group comes out of my pocket. So if equipment breaks or something, it all comes out of my pocket. Just like running this radio show comes out of my pocket. Computers, you name it, mics and everything. So if something busts, it comes out of my pocket. And I want to keep doing the show. I've been doing the show for 2.5 years. I love doing it. I love bringing you different guests, especially guests like Carrie. So if you could find it in your heart to donate a little bit to help me do that, that would be great. That's at paypal.me at California Haunts or Venmo, and then just type in California Haunts. I would really appreciate it, to keep this thing on the air, because I want to deliver messages like this. I'm here to inform people. I'm here to teach people, and that's what it's all about. Okay. Anyway, I want to thank everybody again for coming, and I will see you guys tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. Pacific with Medium Nancy Matz and connecting with your deceased pets. See you tomorrow.